Night falls over the Dutch-German frontier in late 1944. Infantry of the 104th Infantry Division cross wet fields near Zundert and Woestwesel. Soldiers move by compass, bearing and pace count. They use neither headlights nor flares. German outposts along the forward edge report American patrols again and again after dark. One moment, the wire lies quiet under frost. The next, grenades burst inside the trench, and black shapes rise from the drainage ditches. Sentries fire into the darkness, and hear only retreating footsteps across the mud. German commanders have seen this kind of pressure before. In 1943, they met Terry de la Mesa Allen's 1st Infantry Division in Tunisia, and then on the mountains of Sicily. Now, a different American division under the same general stands opposite them in the Low Countries, and soon inside Germany itself. Wherever formations commanded by Allen appear on the situation, maps a familiar pattern begins to emerge. Hard-driving attacks arrive without long warning. Artillery answers calls within minutes of the first rifle shot. Darkness, once the hour of rest, becomes the time of greatest danger. In reports from Tunisia, from Sicily, and later from the Siegfried Line, German officers describe American infantry that does not halt at dusk. Patrols that should be small arrive as reinforced groups. Units that should wait for daylight push forward under cover of night and are found deeper in the defensive zone than expected when morning comes. Messages up the telephone line after midnight repeat the same surprise: American troops are already beyond the points where they were last reported at sunset. German soldiers curse the sudden black shapes that cross fields and ditches after midnight. They learn to listen for wire cutters and low voices instead of assuming the front is fixed until dawn. Allen builds divisions that treat darkness as protection and opportunity together. Night attacks and infiltrations become a regular tool once regiments master noise discipline and navigation. Artillery observers crawl forward under that cover of darkness to mark new targets the enemy believes still lie out of reach. German defenders learn that silence before dawn no longer promises safety. A quiet sector at dusk means little when Allen's units hold the line. Changes in German orders reflect this experience. Commanders instruct subunits to increase sentries after sunset to keep local reserves ready in the small hours, rather than at first light, and to expect major blows in darkness, not only under the sun. In sector after sector, whenever Allen's divisions enter the line, German staffs adjust their routines to a new reality. American infantry that attacks late holds on through the night, and is closer than expected when morning finally comes. Across North Africa, Sicily, the Netherlands, and Western Germany, the same signature appears. Attacks do not pause when visibility ends. Artillery responds rapidly regardless of hour. Infantry units push forward in darkness through areas the enemy still believes secure. German commanders stop speaking of an opponent unwilling to fight at close quarters and begin speaking instead of specific American divisions that arrive quietly and leave wreckage behind when daylight returns. 1st April 1888, Fort Douglas, Utah. Birth of Terry de la Mesa, Allen Sr. into regular Army family. Cavalry commission after West Point failure. Terry de la Mesa Allen Sr. draws his first breath on the first day of April 1888, inside the sun-bleached walls of Fort Douglas, Utah. His father, Colonel Samuel Allen, spends a career in cavalry units posted to the western frontier and the Mexican border. His mother, Consuelo Alvarez de la Mesa, carries Spanish blood and the proud memory of a grandfather who fought for the Union at Gettysburg in the Spanish company of the Garibaldi Guard. The boy grows up to the smell of horse sweat, the creak of saddle leather, and the constant lesson that frontier officers are judged by what they accomplish beyond the horizon rather than by how perfectly they salute on the parade ground. West Point accepts him in 1907. The grey walls and rigid discipline soon prove a poor match. Academic subjects and gunnery examinations defeat him. He leaves without a diploma and without regret. Catholic University of America grants the needed degree. A cavalry commission arrives in 1912 after he passes the competitive examination, an entry route that some regular officers regard as less traditional than the academy. The irregular path marks him for life. Allen learns early to ignore the polished track and to trust results that can be measured in miles marched or enemy positions taken. The First World War offers the first real test. He sails for France as a major, commanding a battalion of the 358th Infantry Regiment in the 90th Division. Saint-Mihiel comes first, then the dark woods and muddy ridges of the Meuse-Argonne offensive. Shell fragments tear into him twice. Each time he returns to the line after treatment. Decorations follow, including the Silver Star, the Purple Heart, and French awards such as the Croix de Guerre. Occupation duty in Germany gives him months to watch a defeated army and to measure the difference between parade ground perfection and battlefield competence. Between wars, he moves through cavalry posts and required schools. Classroom grades remain average at best. Field exercises tell another story. Live fire problems, night movements, and long approach marches earn quiet praise from inspectors who matter. Fellow officers notice that enlisted men follow Allen without hesitation, while some academy graduates struggle to fill a single company roster. He speaks their language, shares their coffee, and remembers that soldiers fight for the man who fights beside them, rather than for distant regulations. 1942 arrives like thunder. The United States Army grows from a small peacetime force into a mass army of nearly 100 divisions under General George Catlett Marshall. Allen rises quickly to Major General. Command of the 1st Infantry Division becomes his reward and his laboratory. The division rebuilds itself around 3 veteran infantry regiments, the 16th, the 18th, and the 26th. Selection for the first assault waves against German and Italian forces in North Africa marks it as a spear point of the new American Field Army. Across the Mediterranean, German commanders study intelligence summaries with confidence. Early American performances in small actions and the disaster at Kasserine Pass in February 1943 confirm every prejudice. They see inexperienced troops who stumble in combined arms coordination, who depend on overwhelming daylight artillery, and who are expected to halt when the sun drops behind the hills. Staff officers write estimates that assume United States divisions will generally grant the Wehrmacht a nightly respite to regroup and counterattack at dawn. Over the next 18 months, that assumption collides with a different kind of American division commander. For the moment, daylight remains the constraint. Until someone proves otherwise, German planners continue to believe they own the night. 8th November 1942, Oran, Algeria. 1st Infantry Division lands during Operation Torch. Regimental combat teams secure the port in the opening days of the campaign. The 1st Infantry Division spends the summer and autumn of 1942 in the damp fields of Britain. Amphibious drills, live-fire ranges, and endless night marches fill every daylight and most darkness hours. Theodore Roosevelt Jr. walks the training areas with a cane and a grin, pushing battalion commanders harder than their own sergeants dare. Norman Cotter turns staff meetings into combat rehearsals. On the 8th of November, the division storms ashore near Oran under the cover of naval guns. Regimental combat teams push inland against Vichy French garrisons at Arzeau and Saint-Cloud. The fighting is short, sharp, and educational. Within days, the port belongs to the Allies, and the western anchor of the North African campaign is secure. Tunisia begins immediately. The division marches east through rain and mountain passes toward Tunis. February brings the shock of Kasserine. German panzers slice through green American units and threaten the entire position. The 1st Infantry Division stands in the southern sector and refuses to break. When the counteroffensive begins, Allen's regiments lead the advance at El Guettar. Tanks and infantry learn to move together under observed artillery fire. German prisoners taken in the hills north of Gafsa speak of American shells that arrive faster and more accurately than expected. Artillery battalions fire almost without pause during the El Guettar defense, turning approaches into churned earth and wrecked metal. Allen keeps his command post only yards behind the forward foxholes. Soldiers see their general in a plain wool jacket helmet, pushed back cigarette glowing in the dark. He demands aggressive patrolling every night and immediate counterattacks the moment ground is lost. German reports describe the unsettling experience of American infantry who close to grenade range after moonset. The division begins to rewrite the enemy's estimate of United States staying power. Spring drives the Axis into the final pocket around Bizerte and Tunis. The 1st Infantry Division marches and fights through olive groves and rocky ridges. It holds when others falter. It attacks when German commanders believe only withdrawal remains possible. By May 1943, the campaign ends in total victory. The division has marched hundreds of miles across desert and mountain. It has fought beside British, French, and other American formations. Combat experience now runs deep in every platoon and battery. 10th July 1943. Gela, Sicily. 1st Infantry Division lands under 7th Army, repels counterattacks by German and Italian armoured forces. 7th Army under George Smith Patton Jr. chooses the 1st Infantry Division to spearhead the left flank of the invasion. On the 10th of July 1943, the landing craft grind onto the yellow sand near Gela. German and Italian armour roll down from the high ground within hours. Hermann Göring Division panzers and Italian Livorno infantry strike hard, trying to throw the beachhead back into the sea. Naval guns roar from offshore. American infantry digs in among the dunes and wheat fields. Every counterattack collapses under fire that never seems to slacken. The division holds. By nightfall, the danger passes. The next morning, the regiments turn inland and begin the long, brutal climb through the Sicilian interior. Roads wind upward like ribbons thrown across bare rock. Dust hangs in the air thick enough to taste. German rearguards fight for every ridge, while the sun burns skin and tempers alike. Troina waits at the centre of the island like a clenched fist. The town sits astride a mountain mass that commands every approach to the Etna line. From the 29th of July until the 6th of August, the 1st Infantry Division throws itself against those heights again and again. Regiments assault in waves that climb through olive terraces and shattered villages. German defenders dig deep into the rock itself. Machine guns sweep every open slope. Mortar bombs fall in black fountains of earth. Artillery becomes the only answer. Guns of every caliber pound the ridges for days without pause. Forward observers crawl to the crest under darkness to adjust fire by sound alone. Shells fall so close that American infantry learns to huddle in captured trenches while their own batteries work the ground ahead. Night belongs to the attackers now. Companies move forward along routes marked by white engineer tape that glows faintly under starlight. Whispered passwords replace shouted orders. Men advance in single-file fingers hooked in the belt of the soldier ahead. They reach the final crest before the defenders realize the line has moved. Dawn reveals American flags on heights the enemy believed impossible to take. Troina falls at last. The cost is heavy, yet the division has proven it can fight a prolonged mountain battle against prepared defenders and win. German prisoners speak of exhaustion and of artillery that never stops. They speak also of American infantry that appears inside their positions after midnight, silent until the first grenade bursts among them. German soldiers curse the black shapes that rise from the rocks long after moonset. Days after the last ridge is secured, Omar Nelson Bradley calls Terry Allen and Theodore Roosevelt Jr. to Corps headquarters. The meeting is brief. Official reasons cite the need for tighter discipline, better staff control, and a more conventional appearance. Battlefield performance receives no reproach. The 1st Infantry Division has passed every combat test thrown against it from Oran to Troina. It has marched and fought across more ground than most formations in the theatre, and has done so under constant enemy pressure. Yet the same qualities that make it deadly in battle disturb the polished corridors of higher command. Allen boards an aircraft for the United States. His division sails eastward under new leadership. Soldiers watch the general leave without ceremony. They know what the division has become under his hand. They know also that the reputation for roughness will follow them across the rest of the war. The relief marks the end of one chapter and the quiet beginning of another. The methods Allen forged in desert and mountain will soon find new ground in the damp fields of northwest Europe. October 1943. Camp Carson, Colorado, 104th Infantry Division under Allen. Night movement training becomes the division's signature. Allen steps off the train at Camp Carson in October 1943, carrying only a small valise and the lessons of 3 campaigns. The 104th Infantry Division exists mostly as roster numbers and empty barracks. 3 fresh regiments, 413th, 414th, 415th, wait for someone to teach them what combat really means. Allen begins the first morning with a single intent. From this point forward, the division will own the night. Training areas come alive after sunset. Companies practice silent movement across the Colorado prairie. Boots learn to avoid loose gravel. Rifles stay slung to prevent metal from striking metal. Navigation reduces to compass pace count and the faint glow of a shaded flashlight, used only when leaders fall behind. Noise discipline becomes a rule that nobody can ignore. A careless word at the wrong moment sends the entire platoon out again for another long march under full pack. Repeated night infiltrations carry units deep into mock defensive zones. Instructors record the time and distance and push standards higher with each exercise. Live fire problems run in darkness. Machine guns fire overhead while platoons crawl beneath the tracers. Artillery simulators burst at random to teach men to freeze rather than scatter. Allen walks the impact areas at midnight, hands in pockets, listening for the smallest betrayal of position. He tells young officers that darkness is not simply an obstacle to be endured, but a condition that disciplined infantry can turn into an advantage. Regiments rehearse the complete cycle: infiltrate, orient, assault, consolidate, all before moonset. Forward observers register defensive fires by sound alone. Engineers practice cutting wire with muffled tools. Every exercise ends with a silent withdrawal that leaves only footprints for the umpires to find at dawn. The division earns the name Timberwolves from a shoulder patch that shows a snarling wolf head against black. Soldiers wear it with the knowledge that wolves hunt best when others sleep. By late summer 1944, the 104th boards ships for Europe. It lands in France and moves north under 9th Army Command. First combat comes in the Netherlands alongside 1st Canadian Army and British I Corps. Night attacks clear villages along the Belgian border and push canal lines forward to the Maas. German reports from these sectors describe American infantry appearing close to bunkers and strongpoints after midnight, far nearer than expected in darkness. November 1944. Stolberg and Eschweiler, Germany. 104th Infantry Division attacks Siegfried Line positions under cover of darkness. The 104th joins 1st United States Army for the autumn push into Germany. Allen's regiments face the West Wall concrete dragon's teeth pillbox belts and minefields laid years before. Daylight assaults have already failed with heavy loss. Allen chooses the hours the enemy trusts most. Night infiltration teams move first. They cut lanes through wire and mark paths with white tape that glows faintly under starlight. Artillery waits registered and silent. When the lead companies reach the pillboxes, shells fall within minutes on call. Breaches open like gates in the dark. Night attacks push forward night after night inside the fortified belt. German defenders discover the pattern too late. One moment the forward edge sleeps under frost. The next moment American infantry rises among the bunkers. Flares and signal lights climb into the sky, adding confusion as real assaults pour through the gaps. Stolberg falls after street fighting among factory ruins. Eschweiler follows when flanking companies appear behind the main line before dawn. Winter hardens. The division pushes toward the Ruhr through deliberate floods and bitter cold. When the German Ardennes offensive erupts, the 104th holds the northern shoulder firm. It maintains pressure despite snow and broken roads. February brings the Ruhr crossing under fire. Night remains. The chosen weapon regiments seize bridges and road junctions under cover of darkness before defenders can destroy them. Cologne falls in March after house-to-house reduction that leaves the cathedral standing amid rubble. The 104th crosses the Rhine and races eastward. It helps close the Ruhr pocket and reduce the remaining organized resistance west of the Elbe. Night operations continue without pause until Soviet and American patrols meet near the Mulde River in April. 1943 to 1945. From El Guettar to the Mulde River, Allen's divisions keep offensive pressure moving forward whenever darkness is employed. German intelligence files grow thicker with each campaign. Tunisia teaches respect. Sicily teaches caution. Northwest Europe teaches something close to apprehension. The 1st Infantry Division earns permanent notation as a formation that attacks without regard for normal hours. When the 104th appears opposite a new sector, German reports carry the same warning. Defenders should expect sustained pressure at all times, especially after dark. German orders and after-action studies often emphasize the same points. Persistent assault, regardless of visibility. Artillery response that comes very quickly after the first shots. Infantry that refuses the nightly pause European armies have observed for generations. Identification of either division opposite a defensive line becomes a warning sign and frequently leads to reinforcement requests and shortened periods of rest. Inside the United States Army, the record carries lasting weight. Allen's relief after Sicily and his later success with the Timberwolves show that combat effectiveness can outweigh traditional forms when the measurement is ground gained and enemy forces broken. Night fighting methods developed under his hand contribute to post-war doctrine and to the emphasis on night operations in later infantry training. Terry de la Mesa Allen Sr. retires after the war and settles in El Paso, Texas. His son follows him into uniform and dies, leading a battalion of the 1st Infantry Division in Vietnam. Allen Sr. dies in 1969. The divisions he shaped keep his emphasis on aggressive night operations and relentless advance alive in their traditions and their histories.